Godfall is a failure. I don't like to see games fail, but there's no other way to put it. It's the one PS5 launch title I didn't buy. Luckily enough, I managed to snag a review code from GAMINGRESPAWN, so check out my normal review there. I just think €80 for Godfall was an absolute rip-off, and I can't recommend anyone buy the game at full price. I know it reviewed pretty badly, but I was curious for myself to give it a fair shake, and so I did. After close to 20 hours, I've beaten Godfall and put an hour or two into the endgame content. That said, that was enough. So I'm going to briefly talk about what the game does right, what it could have done better, and how I think early access would have benefited this game. So let's start off with the positive stuff. Combat is what stands out among the rough in Godfall. It reminds me of a mixture between PS4's God of War and something like Kingdoms of Amalur. There's absolutely nothing wrong with 8-bit in combat system, and I think Godfall did a really good job making the combat loop fun. There are 5 different weapon types that play different from one another. My favourite was the greatsword, and I could really feel the weight behind my swings. Each weapon has techniques which are attacks that deal crazy amounts of damage, and I love spinning with a massive greatsword, destroying all the enemies in my path. On top of this, you have other abilities like shield throws and ground slams that really vary up the gameplay. There's a stagger meter and a mechanic called soul shatter that I really like to use. Using finishers on staggered enemies just kind of felt okay, but soul shatter mechanic was something new. Light attacks took away some of the enemy's health bar, but if you string together a combo of light attacks, then end it with a heavy attack, you can absolutely annihilate your enemies. I personally enjoyed the loot system. It's never shy of showering you with loot, and the feeling of killing a boss and seeing bright colours fly off their corpse is great and kept me coming back for more, until the other parts of the game wore me down. Now, unfortunately, as they say in Looney Tunes, that's all folks, for what Godfall does right. The rest of the game is either completely unmemorable or just outright bad. I mean, where do I begin with this? The aesthetic, while it looks technically good, the design is really generic, which inherently I'll admit isn't too bad. I mean, Warframe is really popular and that game looks so bland. So why doesn't Godfall have the same treatment that game does? Well, the level variety is laughable. They all look different, but exploring the levels is a really bland experience. And for whatever reason, there is no map, which makes the already bad exploring even worse. Even if I wanted to explore, I wouldn't be able to because the lack of map is an incredibly stupid design. Once again, mission structure is extremely bland. Now, most live service games and action RPGs have bland mission design. Go here, deploy ghosts, defend waves of enemies. But at least the other games like Destiny 2 or The Division take it to a few different locations. I think Godfall needs at least 2 or 3 more areas to make doing side content worth it. As I said, combat is good and I love the amount of loot I got, but running around the same few areas got so stale very quickly. Look, the story isn't important to me, because playing an action RPG for the story is like watching porn for the great dialogue. But the dialogue here is awful, and how you receive your missions is talk to the 7th Sanctum, talk to this bastard, then launch the mission. I could care less, as the Americans would say. Wait, sorry, I have to just go off on a tangent. The phrase is, I couldn't care less, because if you could care less, then the statement becomes redundant. It's just one thing that's always bothered me, sorry, I just had to get that off my chest. But anyway, I couldn't care less about the story, but I just thought I'd talk about it for anyone curious. It's just not good. Now the little conclusion-y bit to wrap up this video. I think Godfall should have been an early access game that costs about like 20 or 30 euro. And I think there are a few reasons why it would have benefited from it. So the story wouldn't have been fixed, so I won't even talk about that. I think if Godfall had another year of early access in the oven, to add a new area or two, or maybe a new weapon type, then it would have been a completely different story. Implementing community feedback is crucial for the survival of a game like this, and paying €80 for this amount of content just isn't good. If a game is an amazing 10 hours, then it's great, but Godfall is far from it. At this current state, the game seems pretty stable technically. I didn't have any crashes and only once had the menu freeze up on me, so it would be way easier sell at €30 with the promise of more content and community feedback implemented. I would just love to see this game succeed. The combat is really fun, and I think with a few friends and a good bit more content, then it would be a pretty fun co-op experience, but there's no way I could recommend this game at €40 even to anyone. So like most other games, I'll have no one to play it with. Real developers seem to be afraid of early access, but in this instance, I think it could have benefited Godfall immensely. Most live service games launch in an unfinished state, but without a big name behind it like The Division, Destiny or The Avengers, the game is ridiculously hard to sell. I just hope the game can find an audience after a few content updates, but I honestly can't see that happening. For the first couple of hours I was having fun, but then all the little bits just kind of wore down on me. So I just can't recommend this game. I would love to know your thoughts on Godfall, so keep the discussion going below. I really appreciate you watching and would love to see you join the Discord. I'd like to have a little community growing in the background so we could talk about games or whatever we really want. So don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you all on the next video.